I'm going to show you 3 ways that we can get AI to help students to develop their critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is a skill, but that means kids need practice. And we're going to use AI to do that. Let's get started. Okay, here is our first prompt, and I wrote it as a template. I will note that all of these prompts, the templates and the grade level, grade band examples will all be on our website. So take a look in the comments. I'll post a link there so you can go get all the prompts yourself and then just modify them as you need to for your situation. All right, so the first strategy is called a plausible but flawed response analysis. Basically, we have a response to a question, but the response has some errors in it. And we're going to have the students work together to find the errors, explain why they're wrong, and then come up with correct information. Basically, use critical thinking. So here's the template right here. And you'll see I put in some placeholders here where you put in your own specific information. All right. As always, we're going to start off with some just boilerplate information about who we're teaching and what we're teaching. Then we want the AI to give a realistic student response to a particular question, task, or topic. The response should look like it came from a kid, a student at that grade level, and it should be mostly reasonable, except it needs to have a certain number of plausible errors in the reasoning. And that's what we're going to have the kids find. So since we have the kids doing this, we specifically tell the AI, don't tell us what they are. Don't identify the errors. That's the kids' job. All right, then, but just to make sure, do create a teacher's key. Where are the errors? Why are the errors? And how can they be corrected? The student's task is going to be find it, explain it, and correct the errors and so forth. And then if you have any other information about the task or the details or the content, you can add that in there as well. But let me show you what this actually looks like from an example. I've got elementary, mid-school, and high school examples for all of these, but for this video, let's just take a look at the mid-school to see how we use the template. All right, so let me find mid-school. There we go. All right, we've got our information about the kids and the topic, and we need a realistic response to this right here. A little background, what's the focus area, and how might the decline in rabbits affect other organisms? So that's the question to which the AI will generate a reasonable but flawed response. Following that, more boilerplate. Let's see. How many errors do we want? And everything else should be reasonable. Don't find the errors. And then provide the teacher key, just like we have in the template. And what the student's task will be to do here. Now, when we turn that over to AI, we get a response as if it were written by a student at that grade level, and it's got its mistakes in there. This is what we're giving to the kids with the instructions for the task. And just in case we need it, here's the answer key down here for the teachers and corrections for the errors that are made in that reasoning. So that is strategy number 1, the plausible but flawed reasoning analysis. Number 2 addresses the issue that sometimes there are multiple ways to think about a question, a problem, or a concept, and we want the kids to analyze those different perspectives and make some decisions about them. So this one we call contrasting perspectives. And the template, of course, the standard stuff at the beginning, we want a certain number of contrasting perspectives or approaches or whatever is appropriate to the specific topic around this question or this issue or this topic or this content right here. So give me multiple ways to do that. Each one should be plausible and appropriate for students. differ in meaningful ways. Students will analyze and so forth. Don't tell us which one's the best. That's the kid's job. And then finally, do give me a teacher's key, a teacher's guide, and students will compare it. Okay, so a lot of boilerplate in there. Then you just modify for your own use. When we turn that over to AI, we're going to get 3 different approaches to the question. So we've got approach number 1, approach number 2, approach number 3, and students will then analyze them to see which one seems most realistic, most appropriate, the best perspective from their perspective. And they have to defend it, of course, right? I think this because that. And that's where the critical thinking gets developed. And a teacher's key, etc., etc., etc. So that is number 2, comparing, contrasting perspectives. Now, number 3 is probably one of my favorites, and it's probably one that is most adaptable across content areas, and that is basically to apply Bloom's taxonomy to a particular topic. Generally, when we talk about Bloom's taxonomy, we're talking about reading comprehension. Factual stuff at the early levels, and then at the higher levels, that's where comprehension is developed and begins. We're taking that same principle and applying it across topics. So let me find it. Where is it? Here we go. It's got to be on here somewhere, right? There it is. Okay. And there's a note. You, the teacher, supply the context. The only thing the AI is doing here is generating questions for the students to respond to, starting at those lowest levels of just factual recall, all the way up through evaluation, analysis, application, and so forth, which is where understanding occurs. It's where it's built and mastered. So boilerplate at the beginning, and then basically a little description of Bloom's, right? Generate student questions for each of these particular levels. Then, how many questions do we want for each of those? Make them appropriate for that group of kids, label them, and obviously it has to genuinely reflect the cognitive demand of the assigned level. All right. Finally, do not provide answers, because the AI, they like to provide answers to questions. So we tell them in this case, don't do it. That's the kid's job. All right, let's take a look and see what this template how it can be used. And a very quick follow-up on this. So somewhere down here is middle school. All right, math, proportional relationships, all the information about Bloom's, questions appropriate for 7th grade, and a little more about the task that we want. The AI actually does this very, very simply. So, level of Bloom's taxonomy, 2 questions. Next level, 2 questions, and so forth, all the way through the 6 different levels for the students to respond to. They start simple, and then they build upon that until they are reaching comprehension or understanding. Now, a very quick follow-up on that. In many cases, you might already have a question that you give kids. Maybe you use it for an exit ticket. Here's the question I want kids to be able to answer about this topic. Well, we can start with that single question and then have the AI flesh it out to lower levels and to higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So we can take what you've already got, your central question now, and we can expand it into this full range of questions for kids to work on. The template looks like, where is it? There we go. All right. Information about the kids. Here's the question I currently use. And what do we want the AI to do? We want the AI to rewrite it for each level of Bloom's. Make sure you keep the same content, but make it progressively harder. And that will take your existing information, your existing question, and turn it into a real critical thinking exercise so students can develop their critical thinking skills while mastering the content that you're trying to teach. I hope you found this useful. Take care.